This is the Listening Books Podcast. I'm Jessica Stone, and today I'm sharing a conversation with Sierra Godfrey, author of A Very Typical Family, a novel that follows main character Natalie Walker as she attempts a reunion with her siblings following their mother's death and the news that she's left them her historic mansion in Santa Cruz. But only if all three siblings come back to claim it together. Since Natalie is the reason her brother and sister went to prison years earlier, there's just the tiniest bit of family tension to resolve. Sierra, thank you so much for making time for me today. Most of the story of A Very Typical Family takes place in Santa Cruz, California. And the setting is a really, really vibrant part of the story. It's not just background. I wonder if you could talk a little about what's so special to you about Santa Cruz.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was born and grew up in Santa Cruz, and it's an incredibly special place. It's a seaside town on the California coast. It's a little bit not hard to get to, but it's isolated. You have to go over mountains to get to it, or drive up through coastal area, and so it's just this wonderful haven of beach and dramatic coastline of cliffs, and it's a big surfing stop for a lot of surfers. And there's an amusement park called the Boardwalk on the beach, and it's just really magical. Very laid back town. So I really wanted to do it justice and tell a story set there as part of the story. It's almost its own character. I live about an hour from it now, and don't get to get back as much as I want, but I do get to visit a couple times a year, and it just always feels like coming home, because I think there's that sense of, when you're from a place, it's kind of part of who your foundation is. And It always just feels, maybe it's those early memories, but it always just feels like home. And so I knew that setting a novel there was going to be very special to me. And getting it right was also very special. I relied on a lot of memory, but I also went down to Santa Cruz and really tried to pay attention to the sights and the sounds and the colors and the vibe of people living there.
Yeah. I really loved the depictions of the Victorian architecture in the book as well, which is a really prominent part. My husband and I were in Northern California last spring, and I don't think we didn't make it to Santa Cruz, unfortunately. But some of the places that we were in, was really striking. These old Victorian mansions from this particular era, and they're so colorful and
huge too. Really huge houses. A lot of the Victorians and Queen Anne's in Santa Cruz are original. There's quite a few. There's whole streets that still have these original old homes. So it's really wonderful to see that.
Yeah, I like how much this big mansion takes sort of center stage in your novel as well. That's a really fun part of it for me. But I don't know why. I like it when a big house is kind of part of the personality of a book.
Yeah, I think there's so much possibility with a big house. A house has character too, and I love the idea of it absorbing the families and the dramas of the people who live in it. And if this were a different kind of book, maybe the house would have been more of a character. But I love that even, and it kind of is, the cat goes missing and definitely is around in the house hiding. And I think the house does have a lot of secrets to tell.
Yeah. Between the cat and the lizard and the crickets and the seals, I'm going to just hazard a wild guess that you're an animal person.
I am an animal person, yes. I have a lot of animals. I love animals. Yeah. I've got 2 cats, a dog. We have a turtle. We've got fish. It's a lot, including the children.
I enjoyed the bit of comic relief from Penguin the cat throughout the book.
Yeah, that's, and that's what he really was, is kind of that real element that to provide a little levity and relief, comic relief, as you said. He was fun. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So some of the animals, like penguin, were living, and some of the animals were dead, like the seals. and and it just struck me the proximity that the characters had to death,
Yeah.
because two of the siblings kind of made choices to be quite up close and personal with death
Hmm.
in their careers, but at the same time, their mother's death, which is what kickstarts this whole sequence of events that brings them together, is really at a far remove from them. They weren't there for the death, and it is not, the reality of it isn't very in their faces. And I just kind of, I wondered, if there was something that you wanted to explore yourself about our relationship with death, or that you wanted the characters to discover about that.
Yeah, I think that's right on. I think that our relationship with death is complicated, and it, depending on how we grew up, our cultural um, norms surrounding it, it's a strange thing. And in this story, death is a huge theme, as you mentioned. And they definitely, the characters, the siblings, definitely haven't dealt with probably their father's death and then their mother's death. And if I think that if you have a poor relationship with somebody and then they die, there's a lot of unfinished, a lot of unsaid things that can bother people. And Lynn's choice to work in funerary services is maybe her attempt to meet that head on, where she's taking care of people who've passed away, and she's their last. If you're working in cremation or in a funeral home, you're sort of the last person who handles somebody after they've passed away, and that's probably significant for her. It also numbs her a little bit to death, which is very interesting. And for Natalie, too, that's the same, where she's up close to animals that are no longer living. And yeah, so I think that's absolutely it. They all kind of deal with death in their own way. And maybe what they do for a living helps on a subconscious level deal with that more.
Yeah.
I had a reader ask me, why there's this scene where Lynn comes in the house and she's just covered in some gross things from her work. And I had a reader say, why did you write that scene? And I said, well, it's gross, and it was kind of funny because it was gross. But it's also, it sort of, I wrote it to show that Lynn was could be confronted with the actual physical realities of death, and be fine with it, but she's not okay with the psychological aspects of it. When it comes to her family. So it was just kind of a way to show that in another way.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just for a brief moment go back to setting, just because I noticed that your second book, The Second Chance Hotel, takes place on a Greek island,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, who doesn't want to go there?
Right.
How important is the setting when you're first dreaming up a new story? Does it come first and the plot follows, or the other way around, or are they kind of intertwined from the beginning?
That's a really good question. I would have said no, the setting isn't the most important thing to me, but actually that's not true at all. As it turns out, the setting is very foundational to me, and it really matters where I put things, because when I'm writing, I'm seeing it. So yes, it matters where things are set. I definitely, I spent some time in Greece as a kid, and so I was drawing from those memories too.
Mm.
In subsequent stories I'm working on, I'm definitely setting them in important places that I've been and I can see and I've experienced. And some of the settings, I want the I guess the vibe, for lack of a better word, the architecture, the character, I want that to influence what happens in the story. So, but
Mm.
not in an overt way. I want it to be a very subtle, just, adding texture to what's going on. So yeah, those matter a lot to me. So I would say yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I just would like to flag for listeners that your website has some amazing resources, including, like, I noticed your newsletter has some Greek recipes.
Yes. I love it when there's extras along with the book. So I definitely wanted to add those. The Greek recipes that support my second book, The Second Chance Hotel, my mother helped me write and
Aw,
come up with. So those are really fun. And you can download little cards of those on my website. And
yeah.
then for a very typical family, there's a whole bunch of I've written a whole bunch of blog posts, and you can get those on the website as well, of places around Santa Cruz. Just kind of my own tour of Santa Cruz for
Yeah.
those who aren't familiar. So those were really fun to do too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sierragodfrey.com, by the way.
Yeah,
I do recommend it. It's it's a great resource. Now, I want to touch on the audiobook of A Very Typical Family. It was read by Gail Shalan. Did you
yeah.
have an active role in the casting and or production of it?
Not in the production. I was able to listen to a few samples of audiobook narrators, and different companies do it different way, but they all sort of read a page or two, or maybe a chapter, and then I got to listen to the samples. And Gail's stuck out to me right away, and she was lovely. Loved her voice. Loved the way that she went into the story. So that was the extent of it. Is I got to okay it and hear it ahead of time, and then yeah, she went forward and recorded.
Yeah.
Um, but there wasn't I didn't have any other input other than that.
Did you feel a little nervous about handing it over to somebody? I mean, I don't know if you have sort of fixed ideas about what the characters sound like in your head, but was that kind of a nerve-wracking thing?
Yeah, it is, but also it's out of my hands. It's
Yeah.
contractually out of my hands, and when you traditionally publish a book, there's so many people involved, right? There's your editor, there's your copy editor, there's your line editor, there's the cover designer, there's all these people who care about it, who are putting it together, getting rid of, there's the production designer who designs the page. There's all these people interpreting parts of it. And then the marketing, right? The marketing
Hmm.
campaigns and the PR. So it's a whole team, and it's commodifying art, right? So then once it's published, the readers get it and they experience it in a total different way. So yeah, it's out of my hands. And I just have to be okay with that.
It sounds like by the time you got to the audiobook that you were well practiced in
Yeah.
relinquishing control. Yeah.
Yeah. I am, but Gail's great, and we still talk on Instagram, and she's lovely, and I love having that. I love being able
Oh,
to ping her and say, "Hey." She
oh, that's
recently won
great.
some awards, I think at the Audie Awards, and
Yeah.
I'm so pleased for her. So it's great to see her go on and do amazing things.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that is great to hear. The main character of A Very Typical Family, Natalie, she discovers that she's been on a career path that she doesn't love, and she finds the courage to follow her true vocation. And I wonder, is that in any way a reflection of your own experience, since I know you've worn many hats besides novelist?
A little bit. I've been a career technical writer for a long, long time, and I really enjoy it. But I have also taken side journeys to do other things and just try things out. But I've always coming back to technical writing for a day job. So, and writing in general. So that's been great. But I think there's a lot of things I would have loved to do if I had the time or the training. And technical illustration is definitely one of them.
Hmm.
I find it to be a fascinating field. It's probably a field that is a little small because you can do a lot of illustration digitally, but the people who do it by hand are just astonishingly talented, and I love seeing that kind of work. And yeah, let's see what else. I would have loved to learn how to DJ. I would have loved to just try a whole bunch of different things that won't happen. But yeah, I think that Natalie was I wanted to show that, you can train for a long time and be in a job. I think a lot of people are in jobs for a long time, but they're there out of inertia, right? They just don't move on because they've put in the time and they're kind of riding it out, but they would love to do something else. But loving to do something else is hard. You have to train again and
Mhm.
start from the bottom again, and that's a lot to ask. So I don't know that it happens a lot for people, but I love it. I love hearing about it when it does.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation with Sierra Godfrey. Next up, Sierra has some great reading recommendations for us. But first, a quick word from Listening Books patron Stephen Fry.
Hello, I'm here to tell you about the wonderful audiobook charity, Listening Books. If you or someone you know finds that your illness, disability, learning difficulty, or mental health condition impacts on your ability to read the written word or to hold a book, then Listening Books could be for you. They have over 10,000 audiobooks in the collection, from fantastic fiction to fascinating non-fiction, compelling autobiographies and best-selling novels. You can find books for children and adults alike, with titles read by the most brilliant narrators, including me, Stephen Fry. A whole year's access to Listening Books costs just £20, with completely free memberships available if you find this fee a barrier to joining the service. So, go on, visit their website and join today at www.listeningbooks.org.uk/pod. Oh, do let them know that I sent you their way.
I was reading again on the wonderful website that you've got, but I was reading about some of the writers that you admire, and I noted, I guess because I'm in Ireland myself, but I noted that Maeve Binchy and Marian Keyes are
Yes.
some of the authors that you really admire, and I wondered if you might just say a little about what it is that you love about their storytelling.
Well, Maeve Binchy I've read since I was a younger teenager, and she's sadly passed away now, but she really wrote these epic stories about family and love. And I mean, her books were really, thick, wonderful, long ones. And Rosamund Pilcher too. She's not Irish, but she also wrote along those sort of epic lines. And just, I don't know, there was something about, like, you can read those books at any age of your life and find a whole new thing to pull out of them. And I've read them at different stages of my life just to revisit and see what I relate to differently. But I don't know what it is exactly. Maeve is so just comforting in the way that her storytelling is, and in the way that she writes friendships and people figuring things out. And that was definitely, I loved it. Just really a comfort read always. And Marian Keyes is hilarious. The funniest writer. I've read everything she's written and still do. And she's just great. She's, I think a lot of people refer to her as sort of the early, one of the early chick lit writers, when that was still a term being
Yeah.
used. And that's both true and not true. And anyway, she, I think, probably taught me a lot about humor in really difficult, complicated families or personal circumstances. She does that really well.
Yeah. I have this memory of reading one of her books, and I was on a plane and I was just cracking up, laughing,
Yeah.
like trying not to disturb any of my seatmates, but just she was cracking me up.
Yeah, here's how good her books are. I actually remember where I was when I discovered her. I was working for a company that I had to do a trade show for, and I was passing through Houston, Texas, and I was leaving, and there was an airport bookshop, and of course I'm drawn to any bookshop anywhere. So I went in, and that was my happy place. And it was actually quite a large bookshop, and they had a whole row of her books. And I said, that's really interesting.
this author has a lot of books. So I picked one off the shelf and I read the back of it and I went, that sounds great. And I picked the next one of hers off and I went, that sounds great too. I think there were like 4 books there. And I'm like, all of them. This sounds really wonderful. And then I read the first page and I think it was of her book Watermelon, her first book. And I went, done. This is everything I want to read. And I bought them all and just read them on a plane.
I love when that happens.
Yeah.
My airport bookshop recollection is looking at a row of books, and it was like, if it wasn't Marian Keyes, it was recommended by her. Like, it was endorsed by her. Like, it's like, I mean, the way airport bookshops rely on her.
Yeah, it's a sure sale. And like you said, if it was recommended by her, fine, I'd buy that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything.
Just when we were talking about Marian Keyes and Maeve Binchy, I was just thinking that one of the things I think your book has in common with theirs is a real appreciation for female friendships, that's elevated. And you show some really good examples of what you don't want in a romantic relationship. I mean, red flags all over, Paul. But I like that the 2 kind of main friends, the one in Boston and the one in California, you don't paint one of them as the bad one or the false one or whatever, that these are 2 important friendships, and the way that they support her throughout the book is a really lovely thing to watch.
Yeah, I think, the urge to pit women against each other is never a wonderful thing to see. And we have friendships in our lives that serve purposes at some parts in our lives more than others. And I think that her friendship with Teensy wanted to show that was really important to her after she left California, right? To begin with. Teensy was her found family, took her in and gave her what she needed to sort of move on. And then, now Natalie's in a next phase of her life where she's moving on again. And Teensy's still going to always be a good friend, but maybe the, intensity of the friendship is a little less. And that's okay, because our friendships change as we age and we do different things and we, get married or have families, and different people come in our lives and are there at the moment. I think friendships come at the right time of your life for the right reasons. And it doesn't mean that when they're not playing a more prominent role, that they're not as good friends. It's just, people support us in different ways when we need it. And it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We know you love Maeve Binchy and Marian Keyes. I wonder if there's something that you could recommend, the last thing you read that you would wholeheartedly recommend.
Oh, you've caught me off guard with that. I read a lot. I love reading. If I'm not writing, I'm reading. And I track it pretty obsessively. And I'm just looking at the last few books I've read. I don't know. I really liked this book, The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. That was a recent read, and I really enjoyed that. I think people will like that one a lot. Here's a really good one. Clover Hendry's Day Off by Beth Morrey. Loved it. That's a fantastic one. It's hilarious. That's a really good one.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How do you track your reading?
I use Goodreads to just track what I'm reading, because I like their statistics that you can set a goal for yourself for reading for a year. And I like to see how many books I've read per month and per year. And then I really like it when I hit this, when I meet the goal and then surpass it. It's just, I guess I really like that. And then I also track them in a paper planner too.
Oh,
I actually print out little stickers of the book covers and track them. I'm really, really silly about it, but it brings me a lot of pleasure.
You print out little stickers of the book covers.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Yeah. It's fun because then I can look at it at a glance. I know it's really nerdy, but it's really fun too.
Like that's its own separate hobby. Like there's the reading and then there's the tracking of the reading.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but it's so fun because like I said, I read a lot and I read fast. So I'll read a book maybe every 2 days. And I was like, oh, I get to, print little stickers and and I'm done with that one and put it in there. It's really silly.
Do you ever, I don't know about you, I find, and I don't track mine in any sort of like rigorous way. I just sort of write down a title in the back of my diary when I've completed one. But I find like the first quarter of the year, I'm like flying through books. And then there's some part of the year, and I think it's usually probably in the summer, where there's just this, I hit a wall. I don't know. There's like this real lag and I lose. Like I'd have been getting really excited. Like, oh, if I keep this up, I'm going to have read so many books by the end of the year. And then I don't know what happens. Like the break hits.
Yeah, I think we get busy and we go out and do stuff.
Yeah, live our lives.
Yeah, exactly. We're out and about. I don't know. Last year I had a goal of reading 50 books a year, which would have been the most I've ever read in a year, but I surpassed it. I think I read like 120. Which
wow.
I don't even know how. I just went on this kick. My speed sped up and I had a lot to get through. I was just there. I had so many good books and I just tore through them. So I'm on track to break that again. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. Are a lot of the books you're reading now for endorsements? Are publishers looking for you to endorse other people's work now?
Some. That's so fun. That is just such a privilege and a pleasure to be able to do that. I love it. But others are, just friends' books, peer books, books that are coming out that I know of, that are just, I'm so excited about. So yeah, there's a lot of that. I read a lot through Libby, the library app.
Yeah, we love Libby.
Yeah, Libby's so good, so good. So I do a lot of reading through there too. And what I love is putting things on hold. And then, it'll be like 8 weeks or 9 week hold. And I'm like, that's fine. Because I've got so much to read in between. And then it'll come up. I'm like, oh, great. Now it's ready. And it just fits right in. The worst is when, 3 or 4 come ready at once. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I can't talk to anybody. I've got three or 4 Libby books to read.
Yeah, sometimes the timing just...
Always at once.
Yes, always at once. First, there's like nothing available that I've got on my list, right. And then everything's available at once.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that they should give awards for returning the Libby books early.
You should get something, yeah.
Yeah, like a sticker or something.
Yeah, they should have like a point system or something where you get like... I don't know. For those of us who appreciate stickers, we need our little star. Like.
Yeah. Master returner of earliness.
Okay, very last question. I wanted to ask you if you are working on something at the moment and if you'd like to say anything about it.
I am working on something at the moment and I can't say anything about it.
Okay.
But I love it. It's really fun and it's almost done and I'm almost ready to send it off to my agent and we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's definitely got a strong romantic element in it and I will say this, it starts off in Madrid. So
I was just about to ask, can you tell us the setting? It starts off in Madrid. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. I'm really, really enjoying working on it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Sierra. It has been a delight to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. A Very Typical Family is available in libraries and shops and also in our Listening Books collection. We'll be back next month with Becca Caddy, author of Screen Time, How to Make Peace with Your Devices and Find Your Tequilibrium. This podcast is produced by Listening Books, a UK charity that provides an audiobook lending service reaching over 100,000 people with print impairments. It's simple to join. For more information, head to our website, www.listening-books.org.uk.